to 2.5 to 1. So when you think in common terms, most of us have maybe been over a speed bump in a car, felt a little zero or a little positive G. A guy that sits in the back of Spaceship 2 feels an excess of 3 to 4 Gs. So you come off the hooks after you're released. Very quickly, the pilots will arm and fire the rocket motor. It's, in my mind, akin to riding a bull suddenly. You get thrown back in the seat with a lot of eyeballs in. We engineering nerds call it G, forcing you into the seat. Very quickly, you're using what's left of the atmosphere and those little wings to turn the nose of the spaceship, to aim it straight up. And your goal is to basically get that nose up as fast as you can so that you can use the rocket to point the nose in the air and get you to as high an apogee as you can. Roughly 70 seconds after you ride that bull and that almost fighter-like experience starts, that huge amount of G, the roar, the rush, the rumble, you're going Mach 3 straight up and the engine turns off. Instantaneously, you, the paying passenger, the guy that's lucky enough to be in the back seat, get to experience 0 G, which lasts for 3 or 4 minutes as you float up and over the top. It's our goal to make the system as quiet as possible so that it's almost like a religious experience. It's just you, your fellow comrades, sitting in the spaceship, experiencing that environment that most of us have never experienced anything like it before. As you're climbing and coasting to a stop at apogee, the pilots will put out the feather. The feather is unique configuration of the vehicle where the back section of the wing folds up, turns it essentially into a big shuttlecock so that spaceship is now in a staple configuration that the pilots don't have to even fly as you enter back into the atmosphere. Boy, isn't that beautiful? Another interesting thing Mark told me when I was talking to him the other day is that he had the pleasure of dropping his boss from 50,000 feet the other day, and that the next flight we actually switched the spaceship pilots back and forth, so Mark and Pete Stuckey kind of go back and forth, and Mark gets the opportunity of being now dropped by his boss very shortly here in the coming weeks. It's hard to talk when airplanes fly and you're an airplane nerd like myself. I'm sorry. So where were we? As spaceship enters back into the atmosphere, I can tell you what I know from data because I'm an engineer. On the previous spaceship 1, actually the noise of the air starting to rush past the vehicle at Mach 3 was actually as loud as the rocket motor during the burn, if you can believe that. So just the noise of the wind rushing past the windows. So initially, the G will come on very slowly. You'll start to feel the G build up. You'll get into the entry position and try to lay as close to flat on your back as you can in the Virgin design seats. And as the air starts to smash into the spaceship, you'll start to pick up G slowly, and then it'll build to up around 6-7 Gs. And at about the same time the G is building, that noise from the air rushing past will build as well as the Mach number. You very quickly build up 6-7 Gs, and then it very quickly comes back off. As the G is coming off at around 70,000 feet, the airplane that's been in this shuttlecock configuration with the wing folded up, the wing will fold back down, the nose will drop, and now you're back into the glider configuration that you can see underneath the mothership. It's hard for me to show from this angle, but the sections of vehicle, the spaceship that you see behind the wing are essentially the feather, so the back half of the wing, the booms, the tails. I can only imagine what it's like for those guys up there right now. A, seeing all you guys, B, seeing this terminal facility, but also seeing a spaceship out the window. It must be pretty cool. The other scary thing is if anybody's ever flown with Mike, that guy can put himself about 2 inches from your canopy and just sit there all day. We did a little bit of that out on the way out here the other day from California. What else have I got here to tell you guys? Mike Melville. Mike Melville is he's a real treat of a guy. Probably the nicest guy you've ever met. I'd also, from experience, I can tell you he's probably the best stick and rudder pilot I've ever met in my life. He's just amazing. Mike came to work for Burt Rutan many, many years ago. He just kind of showed up at the door. At the time, Mike had just got done building what's called a Varivigan in his garage, or actually, it might have been in his front room. Maybe I should talk about his wife next, the fact that he got to build an airplane in his front room. But Mike built this airplane, showed up at Bert's door and said, hey, a bunch of the stuff you did here is kind of screwy, so I changed it all and made it better. Bert was so impressed with Mike that he hired him and his wife on the spot to come out and work for him. And Mike for years was actually the guy that if you called Scaled, you'd answer the phone, help the customers build the airplanes. The other thing that happened in the early days is Bert's brother Dick showed up from coming back from Vietnam, and Bert kind of put him to work, helping out around here and there. Mike really was mentored by Dick, this fighter pilot, full of vim and vigor guy that just got back from Vietnam, and really learned the ropes of being a test pilot and being a formation guy and all that stuff. So Mike literally worked up the ranks. He'll tell you he's got a high school education and no more, but he's probably one of the best test pilots we've had. Back in the early days of Tier 1, it was clear we needed to pick some guys that were a little bit nuts and really good pilots to be the guys that were going to fly the spaceship from behind. So an interesting data point is that White Knight 2 has so much performance, even with spaceship on board, we have to have a gate. We limit the throttles to 60% thrust. So those big pitch outs and climbs are all, imagine you're in your car and somebody put a block under your gas pedal. That's what these guys are flying around like. So anywho, Mike, early in the days of Tier 1, Mike, we needed somebody that was really the best guy to fly the vehicle. It was really clear Mike was going to be the guy. And I think even Spaceship One pushed even Mike Melville's boundaries. He'll tell you it was like riding a bull. It was an interesting airplane. It was a flight test airplane with one goal to win the X Prize. And throwing Mike on board, he was kind of along for the ride, hanging on a lot of the time. But no better guy than Mike to fly it. He just has the instincts and the guts and just the vision to be able to make the right decisions. But great guy. The rest of the crew too. I'm really here today to represent the Scaled team, and the Scaled team, I can tell you, is just full of passion like you guys are for this project. Oh, here he comes again. So it brings nothing but pleasure to us to bring a few guys along. We brought about 6 guys for this trip to come out here and show off our hard work. We spent a lot of weekends and nights trying to give you the money shot. So yeah, we spend a lot of time working the hard weekends and nights, but there's nothing we'd rather be doing than building beautiful airplanes like this. Dealing with having the pleasure to work with the Virgin Galactic team, visionaries like Richard Branson who come in and say, it sounds wacky, I know it's a huge risk, but we want to do that. And the important part, I guess I want to point out for all you guys when you see Spaceship today, and it kind of goes unnoticed sometimes, but when you look at Spaceship 2, you're not going to see a cargo bay. You're not going to see hard points on the wings for payloads. You don't see an umbilical arm. The only thing that you see is a big cabin that's all about the passenger experience. And to me, the easiest way to sum up what this project is about is that it's about the most important payload in the human history and certainly the history of space. And that's the common man, you and me, and people that are passionate about going to space. Let's see, what else can I tell you about as we try to figure out what's going to happen next? So I guess another thing I can talk you through is, I'm sure at this point you're all familiar with Spaceship 1, Tier 1, White Knight 1. Really, this program is about the lessons that we learned in the Tier 1 program. Again, Tier 1 was about winning the X Prize, about flying 10 or 12 times, taking huge risks, and just doing what we had to make the mission successful. All the accommodations, the comforts for the guys in back, we're all kind of nixed in favor of doing what was quick and dirty and what would get us to win the X Prize. When we started this program, the goal completely changed. The goal was about that big cabin with those huge windows, and in a word, it was about the passenger experience. So we took all the corners and quit cutting them, and we really focused on giving the occupant, the paying passenger, the guy floating around in the back, the most important, the most breathtaking experience that's possible. So big, huge windows, big, huge volume to float around in. Oh, that's cool. So in addition to the spaceship changing, it's really its goal. The White Knight 2 is in every way a bunch of lessons learned from White Knight 1. White Knight 1 was really a purpose-built airplane to drop spaceship, but in most ways it wasn't a mothership. White Knight 1 essentially just held on to spaceship. Spaceship was self-contained, did its own thing. In these vehicles, White Knight 2 is actually a mothership supporting and providing the technical things that the spaceship needs. So it controls the environment, provides power, and in most ways is a mothership, not just a carrier aircraft. I think those guys are just bored. We flew all the way from California, so let's just drive around.
Doing a great job.
He says keep going, and then he wanders off. So again, it's my pleasure to be here to represent the Scaled team. We've got about 300 folks back in California that would like nothing more than to be here, to meet you folks, to answer questions, and to show off their hard work. We have a few of them here with us today. I brought along the rocket motor project engineer, who's he should be back, testing rocket motors, but I figured give him a reward for his hard work. We've got the guy that's in charge of the structure of the rocket motor. We've got an avionics tech. We've got the crew chief from Spaceship, and a couple other guys. So if you see the folks in the Scaled shirts, be sure to ask them questions, pat them on the back, tell them thanks.
Great. Thank you, sir. That's very kind. So I think what we'll do, hold on a minute, I think we're going to just, when the next, is it 20 minutes, right? So we're going to wave it goodbye.
Okay, folks, this will be the last pass, and I have no idea where it's coming from. I think over there.
Over there.
Over there.
Over there.
Okay, so when it comes over, we want everybody to give it a big wave goodbye so it has a safe trip back to Mojave.
And folks, again, I think this project would not have happened without the vision of Richard Branson, so I think he deserves a round of applause. The beautiful vehicles here today are directly because he's got the passion and the vision to do things that are risky. So thanks, Richard. I see him way out there to the right. Your left.
Yeah, just coming now. Thanks for that. Well done.
Okay, get ready to give it a big wave as it comes by.